Oh boy, I'm kind of scared to make this video, guys, I'm not gonna lie. So, we learned that the brand new seasonal weapons from episode Revenant will not be craftable. My quick and short response to this news is that this is a good thing. If I had it my way, there would be no crafting at all in the game, but there's a lot more I have to say than just that, so be sure to stick around. Remember that this is just my opinion, and I would honestly love to hear yours down in the comments. In this video, I'm going to explain my 3 reasons why I think crafting is a problem in the game, but also why simply removing it and leaving the current system as is isn't the best solution. My 3 reasons why it is a problem are that number 1, it kills the grind, number 2, it limits the replayability of activities, and number 3, it removes the novelty of weapons. The first point is that crafting kills the grind and chase for loot. The selling point of legendary weapons in Destiny has been, for most of the time, hunting for a specific role that you want to get. Now, from Destiny 2 launch to Forsaken, weapons had static roles. Basically, everyone opposed this system, and one of the main reasons was that you would get a weapon one time and then you're done with the grind. To me, crafting is kind of the same thing. What's so different about getting an Ikelos shotgun from Escalation Protocol and being done with that grind, or getting all 5 red borders and crafting the weapon and being done with that grind? In a world with deep sight harmonizers, you can literally auto-complete the grind for a weapon. You get those 5 red borders and then you have full access to everything the weapon has to offer. On paper, that might sound good. You get to use all the new shiny perks, you get to add a new weapon to your build and try it out. While these things might seem good, I truly don't think they help the experience of the game overall. With things like Season Pass exotics and Lost Sector exotic armor and then crafting, we've been conditioned in a way to think that having everything handed to us on a silver platter is good. But then I think back to the times when you would grind for days and weeks and months praying to RNG to give you that Zen Meteor, or to give you that God Roll Kindled Orchid, and then when you finally got it, there was excitement like no other, and that's when you got to go out and try that new shiny thing. Not to go off on a tangent, but some people say, releasing all the content at once for an episode just means you'll be bored for the rest of the season. You'll just run through it all in one day. But I think no, getting every single weapon fully crafted in 1 week is what will make you bored for the rest of the season. And people say crafting as an end goal, a light at the end of the tunnel for the grind. And yeah, it does that, but going back to the Kindled Orchid I mentioned earlier, if you would have known that after 25 runs you would have gotten your God Roll, wouldn't that have made that weapon and experience much less special to you? At that point, you're just focused on the destination rather than the journey. But I say the journey is just as important as the destination. I'll talk more about this kind of idea in a later point. So I had brought up content and getting bored, and that brings me onto my second point. Crafting limits the replayability of activities. I think this one makes perfect sense. You get all the weapons fully crafted, then what reason is there to run the seasonal activity or raid or any activity for that matter? I mean, triumphs maybe? I don't know. You could have the most fun and enjoyable and unique activity of all time, but if there's no reason to play that activity, people just won't engage with it. Let's use the Coil as an example. Fun, dropped a lot of loot, and people still talk about it to this day, but back then in the moment, despite how fun it may have been, when I got all the red borders, I didn't play it anymore. Now, of course, things like the seasonal quest made you play the activity to progress it, and that's fine, I guess, but I would have been much more happy with being forced to play the activity if I was still chasing some of those weapons. Another activity people talk about and always want Bungie to bring back is Menagerie. No doubt, one of the greatest activities ever added to the game. But I ask you this, if Menagerie came back right now and every weapon was craftable, 5 red borders and you get all the perks, would the activity be as special as it was before? Despite Menagerie being a great activity on its own, I think it was really the weapons and the grind for those weapons that elevated it to the status that it reached. Now, I've seen people ask the question, when Into the Light was hot, did you really enjoy grinding Onslaught hundreds of times to get the weapon roll you were looking for? And my answer is yes. It was an experience we didn't have for a long time, reminiscent of the days of past. The weapons were strong and they were worth the grind, and I think when episode Revenant comes out, I will enjoy grinding Onslaught Salvation for those weapons. And it's not like you need to be grinding 12 hours a day trying to get every single god roll within the first week. No, and I think all these instant gratification systems have made us believe that we need to. It's fine if you play Onslaught a little bit, then go to Gambit to grind for bygones, then play some Garden of Salvation for those weapons. So I've made my case for why crafting limits activity replayability, but I will say this. Bungie is way too stingy with loot drops. Using Onslaught as an example, I think coming out of a 50 wave run, you should be getting 15 to 20 weapons. You complete a gambit match, give me 4 different weapons. I think people would be much more fine without crafting if loot dropped like candy in all activities. Also, speaking on the future of activity difficulty and such, why not let us focus a perk on weapons if we complete a super hard activity? I complete a maxed out modifier super Grandmaster Nightfall, give me multiple plug ones with guaranteed reservoir burst if that's what I want. There are different solutions to the loot grind, and it doesn't have to be as black and white as crafting and then complete RNG drops. Things like 2 perks in a column or weapon attunement are good starts, and maybe the next step is leaning more into higher difficulty activities, granting different focusing options and more rewarding options, kind of like with Master Raid Adepts having multiple perks. And I will say, if you want to have crafting for weapons no longer obtainable from their original activity, that's fine. But I still do think if you have something like Presage and you got 5 weapons per completion and you're able to focus the weapons, I think that would be much better than just crafting the weapons, getting 5 red borders and calling it a day. Because the RNG factor would be in getting perk rolls and not red borders. But the conversation of activities going away is another discussion entirely. One last thing I want to say on this is that maybe you have a situation where weapons aren't craftable at first but become craftable later. I personally don't like this scenario because it ultimately still devalues random rolls, but there would be a solution to this situation to still incentivize you grinding the weapon before it becomes craftable. And the answer to that is shinies. If you had limited time cosmetic skins that were rare drops while the weapon was not craftable, that would encourage players to grind for the weapon even if it was becoming craftable later on. So I just explained some of my solutions to the RNG loot chase other than crafting, and now it's time I explain my third reason as to why crafting hurts the game. Crafting ruins the novelty of weapons. This point has to do with the story of obtaining a weapon roll and how that makes weapons iconic. Getting a random weapon roll felt special back in the day. You finally got that God roll spare rations or that God roll kindled orchid, and you had a story to tell for it. The reason those perk rolls mattered so much was because they were random. Now, if a weapon has a red border, any random roll I get is an instant delete. Maybe it's a really good perk combo that can be useful at the moment, sure, I'll keep it. But still, there's no excitement in getting that roll because I know I would have gotten it eventually with enough red borders. And look, not all iconic weapons had random rolls. You know, Fatebringer in Destiny 1, I kill a shotgun from Escalation Protocol, pinnacle weapons. If we're likening the grind of getting static roll weapons to getting craftable weapons like I did in the beginning, then we can focus on the clear difference between these two experiences. Original Ikelos shotgun, you had to do this pretty hard activity, get together 7 players, fight a specific boss, and then you had a chance at the weapon. Craftable Ikelos shotgun, you do the activity, get 5 red borders, you're done. What random rolls does for every single weapon, whether it drops from a very hard activity, or an easy activity, or a crucible match, or a raid, is that the nature of its randomness is what creates the story and the experience and the excitement. With only random rolls, every player can have their own story of how they obtained a version of a weapon that they love. With craftable weapons, that's simply not possible. All in all, if I had it my way, I would remove crafting from the game. I would dramatically increase the amount of loot that drops from activities. And I would make it so that you gain more ways to focus specific weapons and perks the harder the activity you take on. If I had to keep crafting and work with it, I would completely change it and remove red borders. Instead, you would extract a single perk from a weapon, dismantling the weapon in the process, and that would add the perk to the crafting menu of that weapon. I think this would be a much more engaging RNG grind than red borders, since you would have to make decisions on what you want to dismantle and when. Who knows, maybe these are the changes planned for Frontiers and the new weapons tier system. I guess we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about my 3 reasons to remove crafting and my solutions. I hope you all have a wonderful day, be kind to each other always, and thank you so much for watching.